Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Blueprint Explosive Exclusive and I'm Meghna Deka. Well, today, two promising pilots of the Indian Air Force lost their lives. Both the pilots on board now. Another pilot, squadron leader Siddharth Yadav, too had tragically succumbed to his injuries in just April this year. Do you know what's common here between all the three bright, promising futures being cut short? A Jaguar fighter jet. Yes, again today, a twin-seater Jaguar trainer aircraft of the Indian Air Force crashed near Rajasthan's Churu district. Squadron leader Lokendra and Flight Lieutenant Rishi's bodies were recovered from the burning wreckage earlier this afternoon. It took off from Ratangarh Air Base and it crashed in an agricultural field near Bhanoda, which is one of the villages close by. A case of inquiry now has been constituted to ascertain the actual cause of this accident that you can see the visuals of. All we had was a blazing debris left in an open agricultural field. Unfortunately, viewers, this is the third consecutive crash which involves a Jaguar fighter jet. In April, there was yet another twin-seater of Jaguar jet which had crashed shortly after it took off from Jamnagar. This was during a night field mission. Well, the pilots then had encountered a technical malfunction mid-flight. They had to eject to avoid any further risk. Squadron leader Siddharth Yadav, he succumbed to his injuries that he sustained while he ejected. He was a young, bright fighter pilot of the Indian Air Force. He was slotted to get married just a few months later. Well, the second pilot, however, managed to survive. After he ejected, he was injured, but he lived. In March, earlier this year itself, there was another Jaguar which crashed near Ambala. This was during the training sortie which it was undertaking. The pilot here too had safely ejected, and thankfully there were no casualties in the Ambala crash that had happened. But viewers, these three crashes in 5 months have raised a lot of concern. The Jaguar fleet, remember, it was inducted between 1979 and 2008 by the Indian Air Force. Around 140 of these were inducted, and as of April 2025, 115 are still in operational. We are still using 115 Jaguars of the 1979 to 2008 they were inducted. So the oldest of these would be at least 46 years old. These fighter jets are very capable. There's no doubt about it. But let's tell you a bit about its capabilities. The Special Jaguar, also known as Shamsher, or the Sword of Justice in the Indian Air Force. It is a strike aircraft that has been in service, as I was telling you, since 1979. But let's tell you why it's called the Dark Horse. Well, the reason for that is it is versatile. It is adaptable. It is an attack fighter jet. It can carry nuclear warheads as well, making it a big plus point. Also, it has the ability to strike, deep penetration strike capabilities are there. It can be used for recce missions as well, and it can operate from rough, unprepared airstrips. It is also ideal for air-to-ground attacks being launched, and it is a potent force for the marine strike. There's no doubt about its capability. Here's the role, in fact, these Jaguars have played in the past. They have been heroes of several wars. Look at Kargil War, for example, 1999. These Jaguars were using unguided and laser-guided bombs on Pakistani targets. It was used for reconnaissance along the LOC as well. In fact, Operation Safed Sagar, which was in 1999, the Jaguars were instrumental in striking down Pakistani intruders. Even during the Balakot strike in 2019, this aircraft acted as a decoy to bait Pakistanis' F-16s. But then, they're also aging. The glory days, it appears, are over. They're getting old. They are being kept in museums in some of the countries. In fact, it's interesting that the Indian Air Force is the only Air Force in the world which actually still flies Jaguars. Let's tell you as to why many have said it's time for the Jaguar to retire. In fact, the IAF, as I was telling you, the only air force to have used it. In fact, you have retired Jaguar fighters which have been retired several years ago, for example, by France, by Britain, by Oman, by Ecuador, as well as Nigeria. They are no longer fighting Jaguars. In fact, IAF plans to phase out Jaguar jets between 2027 and 2028 in another 2 to 3 more years. IAF plans to phase them out. Well, there's a probe in the past mishaps which have pointed to engine failures as well, which has really raised a lot of red flags. Remember, even the IAF chief, the Air Chief Marshal himself, has raised a couple of concerns in the past couple of months. What did he say? Well, he has said that there was an urgent need to accelerate the 5th gen fighter jets, and we must catch up with the latest technology. That's what the Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh had said just a few months back. He also said China is already showcasing the 6th gen aircraft. IAF is committed to the indigenous AMCA program. AMCA delays, however, may force the IAF to seek interim fighters. If Pakistan gets 5th gen jets, India must buy foreign fighters as a stopgap arrangement. This was the warning coming in from the Air Chief himself. So here's what experts really feel about the ailing Air India forces. In fact, this is what they say, that if you look at the Indian Air Force on the whole, there are about 31 active squadrons, but the sanctioned amount is 42. So they are short of about 11 such squadrons. Also, it comprises of aging fleets of MiG-29s, of Jaguars, of Mirage 2000s. There are also budgetary constraints. There is red tapeism. There is stalling of which has, in fact, led to the stalling of these upgradations as well, even in the case specifically of the Jaguars. There are adversaries of India, such as Pakistan, such as China. As I was telling you earlier, they have inducted advanced jets such as F-16s, J-20s. They are part of their fleets, but not ours. AMCA and Tejas Mk2 prototypes, of course, are going to be arriving, but they're going to be arriving very late. Not in the next couple of years, not at least till 6 more years. But that's not all. Even the 2017 CAG report, let's tell you what the red flags were in the 2017 CAG report, which has revealed several shocking findings about the Jaguar jets. Well, there you have it on your screens. The first finding of this CAG report was the lack of autopilot systems in Jaguar jets, in most of the Jaguar jets, not all of them. Out of 108, only 35 of the Jaguar jets had autopilot systems in it. This was in 2017, mind you. It also pointed out that there was a lack of autopilot systems, which was hampering mission effectiveness of the Jaguars. Also, it had pointed out that they need to update them as soon as possible. So let's go across to our panelists and our specialists today who are going to help us understand, is it time for the dark horse, as it was once called, that the glory days are over, it's time for the dark horse to go to the pastures. Let me go across to Air Vice Marshal Nitin Vaidya is joining us. He's an ATC expert. Also, Group Captain Dr. Major MJ Augustine Vinod is also joining us here on the show. He is a defense expert. Well, first, I'm going to come across to you, Air Vice Marshal Vaidya, because we look at these 3 young, bright Air Force pilots with their entire lives, their entire careers lying out for them. And today, their lives have been cut short. 3 such Jaguar crashes have happened in 5 short months. Is it time for the Jaguars to retire? Yes, they were good in their heydays, but is their time over now?
Meghna ji, to give you an answer as to yes or no will be very difficult. But yes, there is a definite need to do some introspection to know as to why these Jaguars have crashed. Like you have pointed out in the last about 5 to 6 minutes, all the capabilities of the Jaguar, and it has done wonderful job in the airport until the last few years when the crashes have become too frequent. And in the last 5 months, 3 crashes, absolutely unacceptable. And so there must be some introspection as to why these crashes have happened. And if the Air Force cannot take care of them to ensure that they do not happen, then yes, there is a time to say that the aircraft is done its job and now it must be rested. While I must also be very candid and tell you that each time the aircraft takes off, a thorough check is done, the technicians certify it, the pilot signs it, and then the aircraft takes off. But yes, and when the aircraft lands, if there is any fault, the pilot comes and tells the technicians and it is repaired. But nevertheless, in all this entire gambit of how operations are, need to know as to why 3 crashes have happened and all fatal to the extent that we have lost 3 lives in 5 crashes, just not acceptable. And yes, there is a need to find out the exact reason. And again, I repeat, if the reason cannot be found, until then the aircraft should be grounded. And only when the reasons are found, to the extent that it may not happen again, that the aircraft can again start flying.
I'll just circle back to that bit. Are we even in a position to ground the entire fleet of Jaguars right now? I'll just circle back to that. But Group Captain Vinod, I want to come to you. It's interesting that we are looking at a time when we have Pakistan, we have China, our main adversaries, and look at their fleets that they have. They have F-16s, they have J-20s, we have a Jaguar. However, the Jaguar, many in previous reports have been coming up, that its engine needs to be upgraded, that it cannot even take a full payload at high altitude. Correct me if I'm wrong, at high altitude, such as Leh and Ladakh areas. It's important that we upgrade them, but there is so much of red tapeism, there is so much of budgetary constraints that the Air Force has been unable to do that. Is that true?
Couple of things we need to get it out of the way. Firstly, Jaguar is a deep penetration strike aircraft. Though I have not flown a Jaguar, I have flown only MiG-21s and Mirage 2000. I have taken a couple of sorties in Jaguars. And Jaguars predominantly flies low level. The name DPSA is associated with Jaguar because it flies low, it flies at high speed, it evades enemy radar because it flies low. And many a times that I have intercepted a Jaguar, I have not been able to close in for a kill because Jaguar just gets away at low level. It just vanishes in front of you. So that is the strength of Jaguar. So Jaguar is designed to fly low. And who else flies very low? Birds. And if you look at the history, ma'am, of these accidents that Jaguars have been involved in, mostly you will see accidents and incidents. Mostly you will see Jaguars are more susceptible mathematically to to suffer a bird hit than any other fleet because they are predominantly designed to fly low level.
Okay.
Coming to your second point, Meghna, is about the autopilot. See, 2 things about autopilot. Firstly, Jaguar was originally designed without an autopilot. The original equipment manufacturer, which is Britain in this case, designed Jaguar without an autopilot. Autopilot was added to it as an upgrade from by India. And like you correctly said, initially, not all aeroplanes had autopilot. Definitely the trainer aeroplane which crashed today was not designed to have autopilot. Later on, there was a thought process that we need to add autopilot into the trainers as well. But these trainer aeroplanes in Jaguars are basically so that you can quickly convert and sit on a single engine fighter. So Jaguar is a single engine fighter. And the aspect about the engine, it is also true that the Jaguar engine is slightly underpowered. Yes. That is a fact. But that fact is by, again, an original equipment manufacturer. The British decided to put these 2 engines. Our engine is, in fact, the upgraded version. Current engine that we're using is an upgraded version. But only that much of a size engine you can put, and only that type of engine you can put in Jaguar. And Jaguar has given us service from 1973 onwards till date without any problem. These 3 accidents we need to look at as a separate entity and not a systemic issue. 1. 2, it is more of mathematics catching up. Because in every crash, Meghna ma'am, every crash has a different reason why it crashed, and that could have happened mathematically over a period of 3 years or over a period of 3 months. That is just unfortunate that it happened over a period of 3 months and not 3 years.
5 months.
If it was, we wouldn't be talking.
5 months, but that's an interesting point of view. Air Vice Marshal Vedya, would you like to come in? Is it just a mathematical calculation if you see the fact that for the 46 odd years since it has been commissioned, of course it has been, not all of them are 46 years, between 1979 to 2008, the entire fleet has been brought in. So if they are old, if there are crashes which are happening, it's just a mathematical possibility that it would happen in the last 5 months. What is the history of Jaguar here? And why is it that Indian Air Force is the only Air Force in the world which is still using them? Others have actually put them in museums.
As far as what Group Captain Augustine says in terms of mathematical calculation, Meghna ji, the mathematical calculation is absolutely in order in terms of flight safety, in terms of how you say accidents and incidents happen, and then you start doing a mathematical calculation as the number of hours that the aircraft has flown. There is always a standard benchmark of 10,000 hours, and then a mathematical number is reached.
Right.
However, I feel that making it a mathematical calculation may not be the only way of looking at these accidents, for the simple reason that statistics is a very different ball game, if I can use that word, for the simple reason that it can tell you whatever you want to make believe, in the sense that a statistical probability that can happen can either be like, giving a example, is a statistician is a person who, if your feet is in the oven and the head is in the refrigerator, says on an average you're comfortable. Okay, so this is how statisticians evolve in terms of numbers. So I will keep that aside. Coming to the second part of the fact, whether the aircraft should be grounded permanently or not, what you asked me earlier, it's a very difficult proposition to make, for the simple reason that while I would want all lives to be safe and sound, especially the youngsters who are converting, like what Group Captain Augustine mentioned, it remains very difficult for the Air Force to do it, with the very fact that it may not have enough numbers for the pilots to continue training in different type of aircraft. Hence, a decision has to be made by the Air Force whether you can ground them permanently or you keep them on the ground until you find out the exact cause and rectify the cause and then start flying again.
Well, that will take time. Even so far, today we do not know what led to this crash. We'll have to wait and see if there is a statistical possibility. What really comes out of it, we don't know so far. But Group Captain Vinod, I must come to you, because you have the IAF chief himself who's come out and said, and this despite the fact that India has put out this year alone a record budget which has been set aside for defense appropriation or to upgrade our defense systems. It's a record 6.8 lakh crore rupees which has been set aside for that itself. But you have the own Air Force chief who's come out on record saying, so what, at the end of it, not one single project really meets the deadline. How are we supposed to upgrade our aging fleet?
Meghna, quickly let me support my argument.
Okay,
give me 30 seconds. See, in 10,000 hours, Jaguar, accident rate of Jaguar is 0.93. In 10,000 hours is 0.93. The most modern fighter of US Air Force today is F-35. US Navy is F-35. It is nearly double that of Jaguar, 1.63. So almost, you look at the numbers.
Okay.
If as a pilot I fly 10,000 hours, the possibility of me getting into an accident in Jaguar is 0.93. If I'm flying F-35, which is in Trivandrum today, is 1.6.
But sir, wouldn't you say that after 46 years, these probabilities also go up? 46 years.
It has gone up.
It
has gone up. It has gone up in Jaguar. That is what is worrying. See, it was less than 0.5 or 0.4 in case of Jaguar, for simple reason. Jaguar was a twin-engine fighter aircraft for a long time in Indian Air Force, till we inducted MiG-29s and then we inducted Sukhoi 30s. So till Jaguar had the splendid track record till now, and these couple of crashes have pushed this track record slightly on the worse side.
So you'd agree that it's time to rethink the glory of the Jaguar, which may lie in the past than in the future?
It is time for me to rethink my glory also. When I was a youngster, I could run 100 meters in 14 seconds. Today, I'm doing it in 17 seconds. But see, that is the problem with age. Everything ages. And as we age, we need to keep up. like I am doing, like sir is doing. We keep running, hitting the gym, keeping ourselves upgraded, both in knowledge and in physically. Similarly, we need to do for Jaguar as well. Now, what all upgrade can you do now? Let us break this down. The first and foremost, like you correctly brought out, a wonderful autopilot and a rethink and going back to the drawing board. 2008 was the last aircraft that was inducted.
Okay.
That 2008 aircraft, when will it retire? Not 2 years from now. It will retire 20 years from now.
Okay, I'm running out of time, but I must bring in, since you raised this issue of upgrading rather than retiring them, Air Vice Marshal Vaidya, would you agree that perhaps we should just upgrade the Jaguars, not retire them completely?
In terms of upgrade, if we can get good engines, and like Group Captain Augustine mentioned that the aircraft in 2008 will have a shelf life of another 20 years more, and the engines can be upgraded to an extent where you will be able to use them beyond just as a low-level strike aircraft. Wherever you want to use, like we used them in the Kargil war and the higher heights, maybe yes, we can. But I am not too confident if that can be done in such a short time of time.
You're absolutely right. In fact, there have been attempts to even upgrade the engine of a Jaguar. But I believe that one of the biggest problems there have been red tapeism and budgetary constraints. That's what reports have said. That some of that has been tried, but upgrades are just as hard as ensuring that we have 5th gen of Jaguars. But the biggest problem here is the fact that we are losing young, bright pilots for as long as it takes for us to figure out what really went wrong and how soon should we send this dark horse, the Jaguar, to pasture. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Air Vice Marshal Vaidya for joining us. Group Captain Augustine Vinod, pleasure to have you on the show. Without a short break, don't go anywhere.